Hi, welcome to Lawdit Solicitors podcast. My name is Izaz Ali. I'm joined here today by a client of ours, Beth, and it's her first time coming on board as a client and to do a joint podcast with us. She had a few questions, and I asked her if she wouldn't mind if we can record the conversation between us. So there's no real structure to this. I'm going to really throw it at her to ask about some questions she's got about setting up in business. So over to you, Beth.
Hi, you okay?
Hi, yes, welcome.
Yeah, so my question is, I'm a budding musician, I'm on my own, and I want to be able to protect myself if I'm doing freelance work, such as, recording studios, podcast producing. Should I be on my own as a freelance? Should I be a partnership? How do I protect myself in the best way if I want to go forward in this career and in business?
Okay, so very sort of broad question from Beth here. In terms of setting up in business, under the UK law, you don't actually need to incorporate in any way, shape, or form. You can continue as you are, in effect. So you can literally be Beth and go out there and do your freelance work and record podcasts and help other musicians with various aspects of their musical careers. And then you would invoice effectively in your own name, and then you'd be paid. They'll settle your invoice and pay you. The funds will go into your normal bank account. You can set up a business bank account if you so wish. And then at the end of a given financial year, you'll file what we call a self-assessment with HMRC. You can engage with an accountant to assist you in that regard and go through what you can claim back as expenses, etc., and your income, and then you'll pay income tax on effectively your profits of that endeavour. During the process of you trading, we'd always advise that you obtain some insurance to cover any sort of liability. So it can be like the professional indemnity insurance. And in addition to that, there's public liability and employment liability, all that sort of stuff. And then depending on where you're trading from, if you've got a server and a bit, camera equipment and a few bits and pieces worthwhile adding them to the policy to cover you away from your office or home environment. Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that you need to consider there. And then obviously the professional indemnity insurance side, in case there's a dispute and there's some issues with a contract that you've worked on or anything surrounding that, I think that would be important. And then finally, back to sort of legal aspects of it, when you engage with a fellow musician or with another composer, or you're doing freelance work out on a gig or on a set somewhere, I think it's important that you have some terms and conditions. Yeah. So something that you can give to someone and say, hi, yeah, I'm happy to be engaged on your project. Here's some terms and conditions as to what I'm setting out, you're asking me to do and what I will do and to the standard that I'll do this and what will happen at the end and how I will invoice and how I want to get paid. So just a structure of how you go about doing it. Mm-hmm. So that just example was you, as in Beth, trading as Beth.
I think, as obviously I know quite a few other musicians, I think this particular problem, the question I'm going to ask you next, is quite often overlooked. So if you start, let's say you have a stage name or you start a band and you want to have a band email or a business email, how would you suggest, how important would you say kind of buying domain names or protecting yourself for your name, for an email, for an address, for a website? Would you say that's quite important?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always very, very important you do that prior to launch because it's just the case that you'll be paying extortionate money to someone potentially if they go to register that name and they do it in ill faith. Mm-hmm. So it's far easier to cover this off by having an agreement between the band members, having an agreement with the management company, having IP, intellectual property registered, domain names, trademarks and what have you. I'm not going to delve into too much detail, but my colleagues have done numerous podcasts on branding and protecting your name and what have you. But so far as a commercial solicitor, I would urge you to spend money to get that done because that's really, really important in that regard. Just sort of touching upon another thing, the initial point that I mentioned about Beth trading as Beth and doing that, another way, there's various other ways you can set up a partnership. It can be incorporated or not incorporated, but another sort of common medium used here in England and Wales is for someone to set up a limited company. And so you mentioned at the outset that you're going to be on your own. You can have a one-man band limited company, so to speak. So you'll be a director of that company, you'll be a shareholder of that company, and you can trade and do everything through that company. The benefit of going through the limited company for you will be the limited liability protection that would be afforded through that company. And I think arguably a company sort of adds a more sort of kudos to you and your operation. And there are some filing requirements like annual returns and keeping the registers up together as to who the directors are, shareholders are. When you have meetings, even though it'll be like a meeting with yourself, you need to have board minutes. When you sign off accounts, you need to sign off accounts and have a board minute to reflect that we've done that. So there's various sort of ways of doing it. I think a limited company is also a cleaner way of doing it, because when you come across people within the industry that you want to partner with, you want to work with, you might bring them on board as an investor, as a shareholder, and the company can then sort of take off like that. And if there are some interesting contracts within the company, or you decide to sell up, then it's not Beth selling Beth, it's Beth selling her company, which is Beth Musician Limited, for example. I'm not sure if that company's available, but so that would be the way forward. Again, you'd still have to go through the same process of getting insurances in place, getting terms and conditions in place, engaging with accountants to cover income, expenditure, and that sort of stuff. So I think it's important to sort of see both aspects of it.
Yeah, and I think for anyone listening, if any musicians or any creatives are listening to this podcast and think, oh, I might have a problem with that, or I think I need to get in touch with someone, is it quite easy just to pick up the phone and just, inquire about a problem that you might have? Because I think most creatives are quite, not scared, but where they're just not involved in, the law industry at all, they might not know how to get help. So is it as easy as picking up the phone and just having a quick chat?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got like a contact us page on the website. They can drop an email in through info@lawdit.co.uk. We've got a dedicated website to this, which is Lawdit Music. And in addition to that, as I said, we've got qualified staff that can sort of help and guide people through it. So I think by all means, always pick up the phone or drop a line and seek help when you need help, even if it's a quick sort of discussion to dot the I's, cross the T's, or alleviate a concern, because often is the case that people will engage with a lawyer or an accountant when the problem's somewhat exasperated, and then it adds to time costs and what have you. So I think it's important to sort of deal with issues as and when you can, but deal with things early on. Really important.
That's great
advice.
Thank you so much. That's been really helpful.
No problem. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.